Welcome to the Parenting on the Spectrum show with board-certified behavior analyst and infant-toddler development specialist, Teresa Alexander Inman. Parenting on the Spectrum dives into real stories, challenges, and triumphs, offering invaluable insights and support for families on your unique journey. Let's get into the episode.
Oh, welcome. Oh my goodness, so happy to have today with us Dr. Robin Harwick. She is the founder of the Pearl Remote Democratic High School, and she's going to tell you all about her high school and why she decided to open this school. Hey, Dr. Robin, welcome.
Hi, glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. You know, every time I get to talk to somebody about something new that they're doing, something different, it's exciting for me because people have asked me many times, why haven't you opened your own school? I'm like, I don't know how. Not that there aren't ways to do that and we can't figure it out. Maybe it's a little bit of fear, but you stepped out of that fear and did that. So let's talk about it. First of all, what is the Pearl Remote Democratic High School?
Yeah, I love the way that you said it about the fear and not knowing how. So I'm an educator. My doctorate is in secondary special ed and transition. I have worked in schools and in districts and done a lot of professional development training, a lot of educational research. And you're going to hear, I have a German Shepherd that wants to be part of the conversation right now. My frustration was we know what works well for students. Not only students that are on the spectrum, but, all different types of students. And we just often don't see it happening in the classroom. And I always say, I'm not pointing fingers at teachers. I know the class sizes are such that the system is set up, it's very impossible to do what the teachers know need to be done as well. So the short story is during the early stages of the pandemic, my child decided that he was no longer going to go to the school that I was also teaching at. And when we went online, he said, this isn't working. And I was having some kind of bad experiences in the school as well. And so once he said, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm going to go back to homeschooling, I was like, okay. And so one morning, early in the morning, he was about 16 years old at the time, and I started ranting about, everything that should be happening at the school that wasn't happening in the school and how we could do online better and all of these things. And my kiddo said, why don't you just start your own school? So I put it out there on Facebook, and I said, what do y'all think? Should I start an online democratic school? And, I post a lot of things, as we all probably do, and oftentimes nobody responds. Within 24 hours, I had over 100 comments saying, do it. Wow. So I started the school, started planning in April of 2020. We launched in fall of 2020. So very, very fast turnaround. And we had 5 students to begin with. I'm a former student of Dr. Art Pearl, who literally wrote the textbook, The Democratic Classroom Theory to Inform Practice. So I have this book with me, still on my desk. I referenced it often. And I said, well, here, we've got the model. So let's just do this. Let's just do what Dr. Pearl and Tony Knight had outlined. One of the things about the school is we built the school for students who are strategically marginalized in many school systems. And those are the students who have come to us. The majority of our students are BIPOC. The majority of our students identify as neurodivergent. That can look like autism, that can look like ADHD, that can look like combination. It can also look like learning disabilities. And then many of our students are in the LGBTQ community as well. And so our student is very student-centered. We don't just say it, we mean it. And so when we talk about democratic, that is voice and choice, but that is also responsibility.
Yes. Wow. I love that. Voice and choice and responsibility. Because if they're not together, we've got chaos.
Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. Because it's funny. I spoke to a friend who's, I've also worked in school districts. And one of the assistant principals was like, why don't we start a school for children who experience trauma? I mean, and we were we bought books about, trauma and all this and that. And again, the books are still sitting there and we've done nothing about it. So I applaud you for taking that step to make that happen.
So I say join forces with us. This is one of the things that this summer is my summer of partnership. And when people are thinking about, I want to start, I want to do this, I say, let's join together because we already have the platform. We're a nonprofit. And we are trauma informed and healing centered. So many of our students who come to us have experienced school trauma. Many of them have been in settings where their academic and social emotional needs were not met, where they felt very marginalized. Many of our students have been school refusers before they came. So for parents, one of the things that we hear all the time is, they're okay. I don't have to fight with the school. We have energy for other things. Like we're not constantly battling about school anymore because my kids are okay and they're safe. And so really thinking about how to heal and how to give space. I would say we are not therapists. However, when we create a safe space, then academics can come to the forefront, right? Because our students are not constantly worrying about whether or not they need to regulate to keep themselves safe. Do they need a mask to keep themselves safe? All of these kind of things. And they can just be their beautiful, authentic selves. And then with that less stress than in the home, they get to work on other things as well.
Absolutely. Now, that is so exciting for me. But for the people who are out there who are like, okay, how does a trauma-informed school differ from, your typical school?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, we don't force. So we are not focused on compliance. We are focused on helping that child, every child in our school, reach their highest potential. And that looks different on every day. So another thing about being trauma informed and healing centered is, you can't be your best self every single day. You can be your best self for that day, but it can look very, very different. So, so that is one of the things that's very different. We also respect body autonomy. If our kiddo wants their camera off because they're a kid who needs to move and spin in their chair, and that's how they attend and listen, they can do that. When they need to eat, they eat. When they need to use the restroom, they use the restroom. And these are things that are really important for all people, but for people who are neurodivergent, even more so, because sometimes it's a little hard for us to even understand what our bodies need, right? And so helping young people learn, this is what my body needs. This is what works for me. That is all, from that trauma-informed healing-centered place. And when we have kiddos who had a lot of challenges around sensory sensitivity and not being able to eat when they're hungry, and then, they have what looks like behavioral challenges, but those behavioral challenges are set up because of the system is not supporting their needs.
So true. Oh my goodness. I cannot tell you how many times I faced that in, the public school system and I don't know if it happens in the private school system. I don't know.
It does. It does. Because some of those kiddos come to us.
But yeah, I remember one time a young man, I walked into a school, and this was a special unit. I was responsible for what we call the pride and behavior support units, which means these children had, severe behavioral concerns. So behavior support was just that, they needed some support. Pride was a lot of support. Mm-hmm. And pride stands for something, which I'm not going to answer right now. Anyway, so I remember walking into a classroom one day, and the young man asked to go to the restroom. And I said, sure, let's go. And the person who was in charge of the classroom at the time, not a teacher, but a teaching assistant, said, or paraprofessional, whichever, said, he can't go because he, told me off earlier. Right. I was like, pardon? So we're going to have this child urinate on himself and then be ridiculed by his peers and all this, that, and the other thing. So I said, okay, I just told her, I said, listen, I get this. However, I'll take care of it. So I asked the student, I said, just push this chair in for me, please, and let's go. Because to satisfy the paraprofessional that, okay, the child did something, and I said, well, if you want to, you can apologize. I don't believe in forcing children to do anything, because a forced apology means nothing, right? It's just like, I remember in a preschool, the administrator came to me and said, yes, I heard a teacher tell a student, say you're sorry and you better mean it. And I thought, oh goodness, that word is so useless.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? It
Absolutely.
just becomes a word with no empathy, no feeling. I teach children empathy instead of just saying word. So I just asked him, I said, okay, let's just push this chair in and you'll go. So I said, it's okay, I've got him. So he went and, I gained a new best friend because I respected this child as a person.
Yes.
I showed respect for him and also, helped him get his need met. But, so often they can't eat in class. They can't do this. But I was like, then you complain afterwards when they get hangry.
Right. Exactly.
When they engage in these behaviors. So let's fix it on the front end. And it sounds like that's what you're doing.
Yes. We're thinking about those antecedents, right? So antecedents, behavior, consequences. And like your example, does the consequence match the behavior? Withholding the person's biological need doesn't match the consequences for the behavior, right, of telling them off. It doesn't make sense. One of the things we also do to support our students is we lead with the why, right? We know that many neurodivergent kids are very, very naturally curious, and they say, why do I need to know this? Well, we lead with that. We're learning this because, right? This is going to help you in this way. And I have the task of, I do what's called Foundations of Democratic Learning, and I orient new kids to the school. And so one of the things I do is I do some work around task management and different kinds of systems. And I always tell them, this is probably the most boring class that you're going to have. All right, that's why the director teaches it. But this is really going to help you. And this is how and why. And so, we introduce the kiddos to these, but we don't force the kids. And so that's one of the things that has been really beautiful that has changed. Eventually, we have to change our name. Middle schoolers have found out about our school and said, you know what? I don't want to wait. I want to come now. And it has worked so well because those younger students, we have more time. So when I'm trying to teach, task management skills, and should you use a Google Calendar? Do you rely on your phone? Or, what are those systems going to work? We have a lot more time. When kiddos get to the place where they're super, super frustrated, they're not on track to graduate, and they come to us in the junior year, we don't have as much time to really be there to help them grow and help them try out different things. And, I hate this. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it my way. Okay, do it your way. Let's check it out. Let's see how that works, right? So that respect piece you're talking about is really, it is foundational. And we also, again, we talk about respect to the community. So the telling the teacher off, actually, we have never had those kinds of behaviors. So even kiddos who have come from other schools that have a lot of behavioral concerns at those schools, we don't have them because our system is set up so that they don't need to lash out and, those kind of things. But if there is an occurrence of some kind, we talk about it as a community. How does that feel? How, how do we work with this? We also have a parent who has expertise in restorative justice, and I lean on her. If there is a situation where somebody uses language that the other kids are really upset about, and I say, okay, guide me, so that we can have a community conversation that leads to healing, rather than like pointing your finger, this kid is bad, or this kid uses this language, or those kind of things, because we don't want anyone to be excluded.
Right. And oh gosh, I'm just falling in love right now because you create a lesson around the topic, whatever the issues or whatever the struggles are. There's a lesson around it so everybody learns. And it's not punitive because you're not pointing fingers at anyone. It's from a problem solving point of view. Yes. As opposed to, you did this, so therefore.
Yes. And that's the democracy piece, right? So people get very confused, especially in this political climate that we're in. And they see the word democracy and they're like, oh, this is bad, right? I'm like, wait, democracy is good. And when we think about how do kiddos learn to participate in democracy, these kind of conversations, like what you were just saying, this is how they learn to participate. They also learn our school is fully inclusive. So not every student in our school identifies as neurodivergent. And the kids that are neurodivergent don't identify in the same ways, right? So we talk about when you're out walking in your community, all the people out there, you don't know who has a non-apparent disability. And what assumptions do you make about them? Oh, that person's too slow getting their money back in their wallet, and those kind of things. And so we talk about, how do we support each other? How do we identify what our strengths are, but also understand that our strengths can help build our whole community, because we can help people that have challenges, and their strengths might be in the places that we have challenges. And how do we work together so that we can have the most beautiful community possible?
Oh my goodness. Like, I've said that so many times, we're more alike than we are different. And if we would just all band together, this world would be such a beautiful place.
Yes.
Yeah, we can make it that. But instead, we choose to compete and do all the other things that really don't serve anybody. But it sounds like you're really creating a really nice community.
Yeah. And for parents, we have a monthly parent meeting where as a democratic school, the kiddos are never excluded. If they want to come to parents' night, they can come. If they want to come to teachers' meetings, they can come. They don't, but they're always welcome. But for parents, it gives them an opportunity to talk with other parents who are educating in a different way, other parents who have, similar or different lived experiences. At one cohort, we had kiddos from 7 countries. So it was a really beautiful international meeting every month that the parents enjoyed, talking about similarities and differences, like you said. So it is about more than just getting those academics. It's about community building as well, and multicultural international community building.
And so it should be, because so often, children don't get to experience, other cultures, or they experience it through the eyes of the media, which really jaded, it's jaded, and it colors things in a whole different way, or paints everybody with the same brush, which we know, is, it's not even real. It's not realistic. It's not how the world works. So having access to that is so awesome. It's almost like you can travel, through somebody else, right? Like live through somebody else's experience and see what it's like there, through their eyes, and understand better. Because so often, like I said, we make decisions based on what we hear and what we assume.
And exactly right. We travel through, and this is how we make the curriculum culturally relevant and personally meaningful to every single kiddo. So we co-create the curriculum with them. And when students start getting really interested, if something political is happening in another country, and one of the children's talking about that, then it's like, oh, well, where is El Salvador? And what part do you live in? And wait a second, what's the relationship to, our country, and how far away are we? And those kind of things. So we follow the child's interests. We can bring kiddos' special interests. For example, next term, I'm teaching geography, and we're teaching it through the lens of music. So we are going to be doing a traveling through, and the students voted on geography next term and through the lens of music. We did through the lens of food before, and that was really fascinating because you could see how cultures combined. And it's like, why does this main ingredient, tomatoes weren't even cultivated, traditionally in this country? Why do so many of the dishes have it? And then we can follow those migration patterns, right? And then it leads into conversations about modern day migration patterns and the causes and conditions around those. So we were talking before about, being flexible and not having a plan. So my plan is, we're doing geography, we're doing it through the lens of music, but where we start, we're starting in the Americas, but whether we start up in Canada or if we start down at the bottom of South America and we work up, those will be decisions that the students make, and then I flow with them.
And you get more buy-in that way, don't you? Instead of dictating to them when, how, where, why, and all the others. So I think that is so super awesome, because now they're more vested in the topic because they had a part to play in it.
Yeah. And they learn how to learn, and they learn how to project plan, and they learn what excites them and what's interesting to them. And, for our students who have the diagnosis PDA, I love the reframe instead of pathological demand avoidance, because who wants to be called pathological? I learned from the community persistent demand for autonomy. And I was like, who doesn't want that? We all want that, right?
Yes.
And so we give it to them. Our role is to help students learn in the way that they learn best. That means you have to have a relationship with them. They might not know when they come how they learn best.
Right.
And their job is to help them figure out how can they demonstrate their learning best. And so for kiddos with the diagnosis of PDA, and all students actually, we always say, here's a menu of options. Here's the way that you can show me what you've learned from this unit. Option 4 is always, or pitch something different to me. And yeah, go ahead.
No, forgive me. I just get so excited.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, usually option 4, they learn pretty quickly that if they're going to pitch an idea, it's going to be a lot more work because they have to come up with a plan. They have to scope it all out and everything. Mm-hmm. But by giving them that option, they feel less pressure, they feel less demand. And when they do have another option, they can really use their creativity.
Yes. Oh my gosh, creativity. Thank you. And the other thing too, I'm thinking is having them play such a big part. It helps with their, develop critical thinking skills. And then they understand the difference between fact and opinion and all those things that sad to say, in my experience, I'm not saying anybody else's, my experience with the public school system, children have a difficult time with critical thinking. And I know a lot of teachers have shared their frustrations about not being able to teach, right? They're exposing these children to just information that they're to remember and they're not able to assimilate that information. They're not teaching them to learn, like you talked about earlier. I actually worked at a school in a juvenile justice facility, and that was the principal, Mr. McDaniel, that was this thing. We're here to teach them how to learn. It's not about teaching information or somebody else's opinion. It's how do I receive this information? What can I do with it? How do I learn to learn? How do I learn, research? How do I get more information about this?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's all really important for democracy, right? Because that carries on through the rest of the life. And when I see that, many people do not continue reading after high school, they put those books away, my job, I feel, is to create lifelong learners. And so many of our students that come to us have been very shut down. They get to the place they hate school. They don't want to go to school. And so when they come into our school, I say to my teachers, always slow, 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 gentle, gentle, gentle. Relationships first. Yes. Help find the spark. What gets this kiddo excited? What's the thing, right? Some kids come in and they have special interests. Other ones, because they've been in these rigid school system, they don't even remember what they're interested in. And so I'm like, what do you do? What do you like? They're like, nobody's ever asked me that before. I said, okay, well, let's figure it out together. Let's try some different things. And then you can say, no, thank you, And then I think a lot of parents then ask, yeah, but what about those classes that they hate and they just have to take them? Once we have those relationships and we have conversations about the why, and why do I have to take so much math? Well, you have identified that you want to go to college and that you want a traditional, diploma. In order to do that, this is just something you have to do. And once they get the creativity to be flexible in other classes and help co-create, and even with math, our math teachers are really good about, okay, this kiddo's into music. So we're going to go all the way into trigonometry and we're going to talk about sine waves and sound and all of this kind of stuff. And they're like, wow, there's so much math and music. I had no idea. Right. So making math and those classes have a tendency to be not so interesting to some of our students. We make them interesting by bringing in their passions into those classes as well.
Oh gosh, so key. I remember in one of those units that I was talking to you about, a teacher was trying really hard to reach a student who just was not interested in school. I mean, he would punch holes in the wall because he didn't want to go to school. Like his house was full of holes in the walls every time mom said it was time to go to school. So I asked, so I went into the school, asked, well, what are you interested in? Fishing. So we made everything about fishing. His math was about fishing. His reading was about fishing. Everything was about fishing. And we were able then to change, to move on to other things once that fishing it's almost like, okay, I'm satiated with fishing. Now I'm ready to explore something new and
Yes.
different.
I always tell my teachers that just because they were into fishing when they left for summer break doesn't mean they're going to be in fishing when they come back. So don't plan around that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, when you do that, though, I mean, great teachers show flexibility so that the students can then show flexibility, because what we model for them is what they're going to imitate. So if we're not able to be flexible and sort of, go in with what they're interested in, then yeah, we've lost them.
Absolutely. And, I think there's a big conversation right now when you were saying about the child punching the holes, it hurts my heart, because for the amount of stress that child is under, that they have to experience that every single day, like, we want options. So people, have come at me and said, well, oh, are you against public schools? I'm like, of course I'm not against public schools. I want public schools to be fully funded. I want, families that, the public school works for them and it works for their kiddos. I want them to be an option. And we also know that some kids, it just doesn't work for them. It just doesn't fit their personalities. It doesn't fit their needs. We have to have options. So, we try to be really flexible. We have sliding scale scholarships. We are part of the school choice program in Texas and New Hampshire so far. We're working on getting more, because we want to be able to say to parents, if it's causing battles in your house all the time and your kiddo's punching the wall and all of these, let's try something different and see whether or not our school or another type of school can work for the kids, so that the whole family can settle their nervous systems and be okay.
Absolutely. Oh, goodness. Dr. Robin, our time has run out.
I thought it was going to go very, very quickly.
It did. Oh my goodness. So tell people how they can find you, please.
Yes. So you can find me on our website. It's thepearlhighschool.org. If you're interested in coming to school or partnering or just want to talk some more, there's a button on there that says meet with the director. That's me. It'll get you to my calendar, so you can get me through that. Or I believe my email is also on the website, and I'll just shout it out. It's Dr. Harwick, my last name on the screen, at thepearlhighschool.org.
Thank you. Thank you. I've so enjoyed chatting with you. You've got to come back, because there's so much more we could talk about.
I would love to talk about parenting kids on the spectrum. I can talk more about the school. Let's just keep in touch for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And to our audience, please reach out to Dr. Robin, and I will see you again next time. Same channel.
All right.
Take care.